All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is the day the RR Racing Bazooka exhaust for the IS500 is supposed to arrive. It's a gorgeous day out there. Feels like fall a little bit, a little chilly, not too bad. Blue skies, green grass, perfect day for an exhaust install. So that being said, let's get some space cleared out for the IS500, and that means a cold start for the boys. Alright, now that I took her for a quick ripper, let's get this baby fired up and moved over a little bit. With no exhaust. Well, it's got cats, that's about it. I gotta roll back that Evo a little. What am I doing here? get it jacked up and on stands. Then we're all set for the exhaust. And with that, she's off the ground and ready for install. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Santa has arrived. Any car guy or car girl's favorite time of day is when the mail guy comes and drops off car parts. So I opened a few boxes just to make sure the main components weren't damaged, but everything looked good. So let's get everything out of the boxes and see what we got. Second muffler section. We got a couple of boxes here. Let's see what we got. Touch switch, exhaust cutout. Wiring. Switch. Alright. Easy peasy. Nothing I haven't done before. Alright, I'll figure that out later. Probably be the last thing I do. Heat shrink. Instructions. Oh, gaskets and hardware. I'll probably use OEM hardware where I can. Honestly, nothing too fancy. Grade 10. Yeah, I'll stick with OEM. For whatever reason, I have heard OEM gaskets can go bad and cause a check engine light. I don't know why, for whatever reason. Again, given that, I will just use what was supplied. Here's the OEM ones. Again, 2 OEM donut gaskets. Don't know if I need them. Keep them on hand just in case. And these spring retained bolts. Not sure where I got these from. I think these go to the downpipes. Or I'm sorry, the cats off of the downpipes. So I might have to reuse these. All right, that's a lot of the hardware. Let's go look at more boxes. Oh, here's something right here. I'll put this all aside. Stuff I might have to use. Okay, here's something else. Clamps for exhaust slip-on connections. Then we have 4 small boxes. Let's go see what they are. Here they are. One at a time. Ooh, of course. What else would it be? Our polished tips with accompanying clamp. So these will be the final thing we put on after we make sure everything fits up nicely. So let's just put this back wrapped up and in the box. And we'll set these other 3 boxes aside. Okay, now, that being said, there are no instructions. Should be able to figure it out, the general layout. And we'll just kind of piece it together, leave everything loose, and do one final torque down once I have it all figured out. But no instructions in the box. This is it. That's it. Nothing else. No instructions in either box. So let's get started. All right, I'm gonna start by slapping these 2 pipes up with the associated downstream catalytic converters. Actually, these might be the upstream ones. I think the downstream ones got removed. Find out. And don't forget the gaskets. Show you everything here. So here's one on the driver's side connection and the passenger side connection. Ones look okay. I mean, they better. So, and then there's the orientation for the slip-on joints at the end of the pipes right there. And now, last thing I want to do before I forget, let's get these O2 sensors in. I had them tucked up here in this heat shield in the meantime. And they go in there. Let me get that done. I'll show you in a sec. One thing I am going to do, since this is a new pipe, stainless steel, and so I don't have any issues down the road, is I'm going to take a little anti-seize and put it up in those threads there for each side. Okay, anti-seize has been applied. New gloves have been acquired because that stuff gets everywhere. Alright, so now I'm going to thread in each of these O2 sensors. Let's get to it. I like to pre-twist the wires in the opposite direction that they'll be threading, so that by the time it's done threading, the wires are not twisted. So in this case, twist them this way. Alright, she's in. Just gotta torque it down later. Alright, there's two. And let's just torque her down to spec. You do need the deeper one. The shallow one will not work because of this little cup. She's on there snug. I'll get the wrench on there. I just want to show you I did remove the grommet. I'm going to put that grommet back. That's all. Get to you when we're done here. And that feels pretty good right there. You can feel the washer on the O2 sensor crush. Get that bad boy out. Boom. Grommet is installed. Same thing on the other side. Let's do it. Boom. And the grommet, let's not forget. Keep everything watertight. Tug. Good. And that's that. Alright. Let's get something slipped on these ends here. And again, with the whole no directions thing, I can bolt stuff together no problem, but I kind of got to guess. This is the X-pipe. Which way it goes? Flanges pointing up, right here, or flanges pointing down. Otherwise, those obviously slip on those other tubes, so that's self-explanatory. I'm going to go with pointing down and see what happens, because this kind of looks like it points up, and as it goes out for the mufflers. So we'll take a gamble there and see how that goes. So flanges pointing down is what I'm going with for now. Let's see if I can easily get this fitted up. Here we go. Let's not forget our 2 exhaust clamps, one for each side of the X-pipe. The nuts on this clamp are 15 mil. That's a 15 mil right there. Clamps on our clamps. Alright, so shit is not lining up already. Press. I'm gonna go loosen those flange bolts at the cat, each cat just a little bit. Oh, X pipe on. I hope these flanges are supposed to point down. X pipe bolted up. Need a new glove. Alright, next thing we got here are these little elbow pipes. Let's again hope I have the orientation and side picked correctly. This is gonna suck if I don't. I will be using, again, the gaskets that were supplied, and now I have to dip into the hardware that was supplied. So here we go. Let's see if everything lines up. Hopefully it does. All right, let's get the driver's side on. That's it. Both waters up. All right, next thing to do is get these babies on. So passenger side will go something like that. Driver's side, get that positioned up. Something like that. These are using Flowmaster mufflers on here. And obviously the valve chamber, well, it's just an open pipe right there past the valve. So let's get these babies up and get the wiring done. Here we go. Let's get these front hangers on first. Well, I should say rearmost hangers on first. There's one, and there's the other, and then I'll do the slip-on connection. Alright, so there's finished up. There's the clamp slip-on connection, pipes, one rubber hanger which I got adjust right now, and the other rubber hanger. Alright, let's get this passenger side on. Here we go. Here's the one. That's on. She's on. She is on. Okay. Let's get these tips on and then I'll finish tightening all the clamps. And then all we gotta do is wire up the valves. Let's get these tips unboxed. Exhaust pipe diameter is going to be inner wall to inner wall 2.5 inch. Okay, and the tip diameter, looking at 4-inch tips. Let's slide these babies on. Forgot the clamps. Okay, they're slapped on, not tightened, but they look good. I will now be snugging everything down with a 15 mil. All the clamps, 15 mil. Starting with the X pipe. Okay, X pipe is done. Muffler axle back clamps are clamped on passenger side, and there's the driver side axle back clamp. Let's get to our exhaust tips. One sec. Okay, tips are pretty much set. Ended up kind of setting back that outboard tip just about 1/2 inch from the inboard tip. Same thing here. They're all zipped down. I'm happy. I can't wait to see how this thing sounds. Okay, I was about to drop her and get all the wiring set up, but let's get all this under tray stuff put on, that little metal brace put back on. You know, I was putting on this wheel and I realized that I forgot to do that. And I didn't even have this wheel off for any reason other than the little more clearance back here getting out from under the car. And side note, whoever's idea it was at Lexus Toyota to use lug bolts instead of nuts and studs needs to be let go. Not that they're impossible or I can't do them, it's just a pain in the ass and not worth the time. All right, let's put that stuff back on. See you in a sec. Okay, tray and chassis brace has been installed underneath. I'll show you a quick couple, let's see, per panel. There's 2 panels. You had 4 little screws per panel, 1 plastic clip per panel, and 3 nut certs per panel, which are already installed on the plastic panel. And then that brace, oh man, has 6 bolts and 2 nuts, I believe, for studs. All right, time for the fun part. The electrical bits. Let's figure this out. I'll let you know when I figure it out. Okay, I have this figured out, and while it looks pretty convoluted right now, it's actually pretty simple. I'll run through it real quick, and then kind of, I don't know if I'll time lapse the install because I don't really know where I'm going to route a lot of this wire, or figure it out as I go. But here we go. I'll show you how it works. So you have this controller, they call it a brain. It's just a controller for the valves and receiver for the remote. Okay, this talks to this wirelessly. And from here, as far as wiring goes, it's extremely simple. There's 2 leads off this controller. One lead has the fuse in the circuit as well as the 2 points that I'm going to be soldering into the car. Red obviously is a 12-volt key-on ignition source, and the black is just a ground. So it's very simple. I'll figure that out somewhere in the engine bay. Like I said, I'll figure that out. Okay, that's one lead. The other lead off of this controller is simply the signal wire that gets triggered from the controller, sends a signal to each of the valves to open. So just basically is a wire that tees off, and here's one that goes to, this is one valve, and then this one goes to the other valve. That's all it is. All this other wiring and stuff is just extra slack should we need it. But it's basically this one wire, and it tees off, and then one goes to one valve, and then the other end goes to the other valve. Simple as that. It's just a matter of cable management and cleaning, you know, having clean cable routing. So I'm gonna figure out what I want to do as far as routing goes, and then I'll have to find where I can tap into a 12-volt, key-on 12-volt, not a constant 12-volt. Okay, it is now the next day. I had to call it quits. I was beyond beat. Gather my thoughts, etc. All right, so first things first, all we gotta do is get this installed. Let's clear out the trunk, make room, because I gotta remove, you know, the spare wheel, some foam padding, access the OEM amp. That's where I'm gonna tap in for the keyed 12 volts. And then there's a grommet I can pass through to get the splitter cable through to each dongle from each valve. So let's get going. Okay, removed 90% of everything I gotta remove. Spare wheel. And you have a selection of grommets to utilize. I'm probably gonna pass through this one. Use that one as well. It's already being used by factory. And I just got to remove this little cover here, and the amp is beneath that, so let me get to it. Okay, there's just a little nut here beneath the anchor, so let me get this nut off, and then the panel can be removed. There's a couple pop clips, you just pop them off, but other than that, just this nut. And once you get that 10mm nut loosened, this assembly pops right out for the anchor. Set that aside, and this should come right out. And that exposes the amp. And now, for our power wire, we want, oh, this is going to be hard to show. We want this blue one right here up front. Try to isolate that. I'm gonna have to cut back on this tape a little bit, but the one right in front of my index finger is the wire we want for keyed 12-volt accessory power. Alright, let me get to it. Okay, what I did was ended up just partially removing the amp from its installed location because trying to work back there in that crevice was not happening. So if you have the premium, you should have the Mark Levinson amp back here, and that gets you access to this specific wire here. This blue one is where I'm going to be tapping, this light sky blue color here, but now it's much more easily accessible. And this is just a 10mm bolt here, and then, well, rather a nut because it's on a stud, and then another 10mm nut back there on another stud, and then this can be removed. And this will also be where I use for ground. So let me get this tapped in, this peeled back a little bit, and then the red wire spliced into it, and see how it works. Okay, I got my ground prepped for solder. I'm just gonna hook up one of these end connections that'll go right onto the stud, and then the nut will secure it onto the same stud that that amp gets bolted to, and that'll be our ground connection. And then there will be one more piece to solder, and that'll be that 12-volt. Okay, so that takes care of our ground. Let's go get our 12-volt soldered in, spliced in I should say. I got it cut and ready to go. Okay, I've got a little section spliced out from the blue. Red is connected loosely. Just gonna dab a little bit of flux on there to get her going. Alright. Grab our solder. It's pre-tin. Our gun, or iron I should say, soldering iron. I might need an extension cable. I do need an extension cable. Hold please. Extension cable acquired. Let's solder. A little more. Let's say she's good. Let's go ahead and unplug that. Let that cool down. Alright, now for the dry run test, I'm just going to loosely connect these underneath with no proper routing of wiring, get everything hooked up, and turn the ignition on. I'm not going to turn the car on, and then just come back here, grab the switch, and see if we have everything powered up correctly. So, one sec. Okay, I've got everything hooked up. I've got the red power from the fuse spliced in. I've got black to that stud. Now, if it doesn't work the first time, it's because the stud's painted and that body's painted. I might have to scuff that down a little bit to get a thorough ground to the chassis, but we'll give it a shot as is. I have the controller sitting right here for now. I'll button that up nicely afterwards, and then just the initial lead wire to the Y split down here. And I didn't even need the individual extensions. There's the Y, one going to that valve, and then the other going to that valve. So let's see what happens here. I'm gonna go power up the car, get our remote with us, get our key. Alright, we're gonna go ignition on. Let's go back here if we can, before we press anything, see if we can hear them do something. Oh baby. Oh baby. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but we have power. Sounds like just from the passenger side though. Not sure why. Let's see here. See if we can see the valve. Alright. It's gonna be tricky. So close. And she's closed. Open. Open. That's the passenger side. Let's check driver's side. Well, driver's side is engaging as well. Alright, so closed. Open. Alright everybody, that confirms we're good to go. I'm going to tidy everything up and I'll show you my final wiring path when complete. Okay, a little update. Got the wires nice and neatly tucked under there, under the panel. Zip tied. I have some slack in there, zip tied slack for any tension relief should anything get pulled. And now I'm just running this one lead before the splitter through the grommet, which I do have through the grommet, and I'm going to go underneath. There's a black pan. I'm going to remove that black pan so I can pull this down through, and we'll get to the underside of the vehicle. All right, car is jacked up on jack stands. Like I said, got that cable routed through the grommet. Now underneath, to access the underside of that grommet, this little splash shield deal, diffuser, I guess if you want to call it, needs to be removed. So nothing too tricky about that. Let me get that removed. All right, and that pan, tray, diffuser deal has been dropped. The only thing you're actually removing from it are 4 of these pop clips at the rear of the tray. The remaining fasteners that are used to secure it remain on the tray itself. So you have, I'm gonna say, 3 of these little 10 mil plastic nut deals that stay on the tray, and then two 12mm nut things that stay in the tray in those little holes. Anyways, super easy to get out. Now, what we have here is everything underneath exposed, and boom. Right there is our grommet that we're using to fish everything through. And there's our wire. So I'm gonna pop up through the back, well, back through the interior of the trunk and fish that wire down, and we won't even need the extensions because this can literally, these two can just connect to it right from there, honestly. So that eliminates like 50 feet times 2 of wiring. So we're just going to use these little, we're just going to use the factory dongles with the splitter to the single cable to the controller, and boom, that's it. No extensions needed. So let's go fish this open, or fish it through. And you can see daylight underneath. And we're just going to use this one single cable. We might not even need to fish the entire length down there, but for now, I will. There she is. And there she is through the underside of the grommet. I'll probably silicone seal this so it's officially weatherproof once I'm done, but I'm just going to tuck that grommet back into its resting place. Make sure everything's good with that. Okay, grommet is good. Alright, here's a wire. This is the lead from the controller that we fed through the grommet. And we're literally just gonna take it, connect it, like so. If I put a free hand here. Boom. Done. Everything's wired up now. I just gotta neatly zip tie all this loose wire and pull back through the trunk what I don't need. I'm gonna use some zip ties to fasten to whatever all this is, maybe a charcoal canister and other EGR or emission related components. I'm not too sure what this is. So anyway, give me a minute. I'm gonna cleanly, like you said, run all this up, zip tie it, also install the heat shrink tubing on the splice connections here. I'll just take that off and put on the heat shrink tube, and that should weatherproof that, and I'll also further secure that with zip ties, and then we should be good to go. We'll get a cold start, the first cold start. Valves open or valves closed? Probably valves open. We're gonna send it. We're gonna give it a full send. Okay, one sec. All right guys, final cable routing. Here's our passenger side valve over there. Here's our driver side valve right here. Okay. Here's the grommet from the trunk. All right. The T is right here. I basically have the passenger side looped up and around this charcoal canister deal, zip tied, heat shrunk. Okay, and there it ties into the T. And then this is from the driver side valve. Up and around. I have a zip tied along this cable here, and then running to its corresponding valve. And then the T splitter, I have zip tied, zip tied, zip tied up there, and then fed all the remaining cable through back through the grommet, so I have less down here. I didn't need, like I said, I didn't need either of the extensions, so that made everything real simple to minimize all that cable that you would have to deal with. Less headache, less is more here. So I didn't want it touching any of these clips or nothing to get, you know, braided and then, you know, expose the wire over time. So I left plenty of slack here. Nothing is taut. Everything can expand or contract as needed or move. I just wish there was like a separator bracket from here because I don't like how close I can get, but I feel like once I put in that pan, it'll isolate the exhaust from the wires, so we'll see. Just got to go back up through the inside of the trunk and tidy up the remainder of the cable. Zip ties are your friend here. Use as many zip ties as you can. Zip ties, zip ties, zip ties. Makes everything look nice. All right, back up top. There's the top of the grommet. Like I said, I'm going to silicone to waterproof it. And then I'm just going to bundle up this wire, keep it nice and tucked away and out of view. So, till next time. All right, I have the grommet siliconed above and below, so extra weatherproofing, I should say. And then I have this all tucked neatly under the trim and running back to that compartment there. So minimal wire exposure, the spare tire goes back in. Let's get everything slapped back in there and good to go. All right, everybody, got everything in the trunk put back together, nice and tidy. Let's close that up. I got the black splash shield diffuser, whatever you want to call it, bolted back up. I think that means there's one thing left to do, and that's a cold start for everybody. The boys, the ladies, everybody. Appreciate you watching if you made it this far. There she is. There she is. Nice tips. So let me get this thing on the ground and let's just verify that they're open. Valves are indeed open. Okay, we're gonna leave it that way for the cold start, for the first start. Let me drop her down. Nothing else left to do, nothing else left to say. Let's do it. Gents, here we are. Looks just as good as it sounds. sounds pretty good. I like it a lot. It's how it should have sounded from factory, to be honest. Now this is valves open. Let's do valves shut. And it does hamper it a little bit. It's subtle, but I like valves open. Oh yeah. That's just all residual oils and whatnot from manufacturing that are burning off right now. I'm not worried about that smoke. Didn't do it before. All right, everyone. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Did my best. I think this thing came out looking phenomenal and sounding just as good. Right now we're pretty much warmed up at operating temperature. Valves open, idle. I'll do a comparison video another time of open versus close, cold start versus warm start. I have OEM, I believe, in the first video. So until then, thank you very much again. Appreciate it. Till next time.